Hello, friends. Today, in this session, in a short session, I want to talk to you about the last minute ideas or my thoughts, which I want to share about the second assignment, and also try to remove some of the misgivings about this second assignment. So let's start one by one. First of all, I want to discuss with you the instructions about the second assignment, which are in the course description PDF file in Start Here folder in Optima. So let me share the screen with you, which is this. So this is the second assignment. I hope you can see it. I can make it slightly lengthier so that you can see it. So you need to choose a multinational company, which is same as the first assignment. It should be a non-financial and non-utility company, but yeah. You only required to analyze only 1 annual report. So 1 year annual report. It could be 2018, 19. 20 is not possible, but I think most of the financial statements or the annual reports of 2019 are available. Analyze the risk management report activities and ascertain the following of the chosen company. You need to basically analyze the risk management risk factor report, which is a sub-report of the annual report, but I will discuss with you with one example shortly. You can talk about what type of financial risk the company is exposed to and what type of risk they. So you need to analyze first that what are the risks which the company is exposed to. Now here, this point has 2 dimensions. The first dimension is that when you are looking at the risk management section in the annual report or the risk factor section in the annual report, you will see a list of factors or list of risk which the company admits that it is exposed to. That's very good. But the second source of this list of risks is basically the end point of your first assignment. Remember that most of you, you ended your first assignment at a point SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, where you make a list of risk, which you guys actually assessed or highlighted or identified based on your strong ratio analysis, which is basically the fundamental analysis which you people did. So you also made a list of risk which you guys identified. Now, when you check, when you compare it with, so that's your first point. The end point of the first assignment is the starting point of the second assignment, that you make a list of risks. Risk which you identified in the first assignment, and also the risk which company admits that it is exposed to. The second thing is that you need to check that how these risks are exposing the company in the light of the financial, the exchange rate fluctuations. So for example, you identify one risk, whether it is admitted by the company or you guys found it, that the company has a risk of demand shortage, that maybe the customers do not like it. Now, this is a very general point that the demand can fall, but see it in the light of the exchange rate fluctuation, that it's possible that you are selling goods to, it's a Finnish company selling goods to the US, and the consumers in the USA, they are declining the demand for your product. So as a result, you will have less revenue, but that revenue can even get short or squeeze if dollar depreciates against euro. So you can have a double whammy situation. That on the one hand, your demand shrinks, and secondly, whatever revenue you get from the US, it shrinks further due to the dollar's depreciation against the euro. So you are able to see a risk, demand risk, in the light of the foreign exchange fluctuation. Same way, One of your risks is that you might have to invest a lot on the technological development. And just imagine that this technology comes from Australia. Then you will be paying to this Australian companies in Australian dollars. And what if this Australian dollar price goes up? You know, the Australian dollar debt appreciates against euro. So you need to see this risk in the light of the forex, the foreign exchange fluctuation, because foreign exchange fluctuation is a very common denominator. You can see any risk with the help of the foreign exchange fluctuation, because most of the companies which you have chosen, they are multinational companies, and multinational companies definitely deals in export, import, or investing in different countries. And then you would see that what is the general thoughts of the financial risk management policy. What are the basic characteristics of the foreign of the financial risk management of the company? Normally, there is a section where you can see the characteristics or the models or the techniques followed by the company to manage the financial risk. And then lastly, you'll be discussing that how the financial derivatives can help you to do this financial risk management. You can discuss about the forwards, futures, and options. Here you have to be a bit creative and be more descriptive. You need to explain that if the company, if you see the annual report and find that the company is only using forwards, do you think that you are in a position to give advice to the company that they should also start thinking about using options in the future? So here you have to make some kind of comparison, which you hopefully have learned in the lecture slides with the help of the slides, that which are the contracts, which futures, forwards, or the options which you can use to do the risk management, and you can talk about their relevance, the merits, demerits. It could be possible that if you are very conservative, you are really scared of the foreign exchange fluctuation, maybe forwards could be a better option. If you want to take some risk, or if you want to play against the market and also be more bit of speculative, then you can use the options. Futures. Futures. And if you want to buy the right to protect the forex fluctuation, but also you want to have extra freedom of not to exercise those contracts, then you can talk about the options. So here you can bring some theoretical concepts in the light of the case company. Swaps, you will not discuss. I think we discussed many times that swaps, I had a plan to include swaps in the beginning, but no longer. You will not be talking anything about swaps. So you're only discussing three concepts. Three: forwards, futures, options. Options are two types of call and put. The tabular and graphical representation play a very important role in this task. I don't want you to misunderstand it. If you are just copying and pasting some tabular figure from the annual report in the slide, it will not be serving any purpose. Number one, you don't know what table means. Number two, you are unable to explain it. So having a table for the sake of it, no, it's not required. When I say tabular and the graphical representation, here I mean basically that based on your analysis, can you draw some table or can you make some figure? Like, for example, when you see the options, it's very figurative. It's all the payoff. Unless you draw the figures, you will not be able to understand those options. And if you are finding that the company's risk management policy or their amount of hedging has increased or decreased over time, then in that case, you can draw a table or figure, but only, I must clarify here that only when it is important to draw a table and draw a figure, but only when it's relevant. If you are straight away copying and pasting from the annual report, then I would rather see the annual report than looking at your slide. But one thing I must very vehemently, very strongly clarify, because it has been asked to me several times, and I have answered more than several times, that there is an inherent difference in the nature of first assignment and second assignment. The first assignment is more prescriptive, where you prescribe something based on your strong, hard data analysis. You see last 3, 4, 5 years annual reports, and you do very lot of data analysis. You draw the graph, you make some kind of ratio analysis, and you make some kind of fundamental analysis. And based on that, you provide some list of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Second assignment is not prescriptive, it's descriptive. You describe something. When you give the second assignment, you are giving details. Details, you're trying to convince. You give the arguments, but don't do too much of number crunching in the second assignment. If your second assignment is full of tables and numbers, it will absolutely be destructive. Don't do that. Describe, give the reason. Reason is what? Well, you identified some risk at the end of the first assignment. Then you take the risk from the company's risk factor report. And then you're looking at how these risks are reflecting on the company through the exchange rate fluctuation. And then you are suggesting the company that, hey, this should be your risk management policy. And these are the instruments which you can use. And if the company already have a risk management policy, here you can give some kind of critique, some kind of critical analysis that, hey, you folks, why don't you use options? Come on, options are missing from your portfolio. So these kind of descriptive things you are required to use. So when you give the second presentation, you can assume that you are a CFO of a company, and you are giving a presentation to the board of directors about your risk management policy. When you give a presentation as a CFO, you should explain what risk company is exposed to, what is the exchange rate fluctuation reflecting through different risks on the company, and then what is the existing risk management policy, and what type of instruments you are using and you should use in the future. That's it. So here, the grading will strongly depend upon the power of your arguments, not how many tables you show to me, okay? So you only show those tables and figures which you can argue and justify. If you have a 7, 10, 20 tables and you don't even understand them, then don't do it. Don't do it, okay? So let's be very clear about it. The layout, I think that you can go through. That's the other things which I don't want to discuss. I want to talk to you about a case company which I identified. I randomly picked up this company called Air Iceland, okay? And when I go to the annual report of this company, 2018, and then I find that they have a section called risk management, even though I will not hesitate in using the find function. So I shall be typing different words. I'll be typing risk, I'll be typing forward, I would be typing future, I would be typing option. Yeah, and maybe I would also type hedge or hedging, or even I don't mind using the full word risk management, so that I can come as close to the exact concepts as possible. So there is a page 36, and on page 36, I can see that there is a 36 to 39, there is a 3-page long description of the risk. And oh yeah, when I see that, I see that the company admits the risk which it faces. There is a foreign currency risk. And they have a kind of deficit against the US dollar, so it means they have to make some payments. There is also some issues with the Canadian dollar. There is Yeah, because the Irish kroner has been quite fluctuating. They are investing in different countries, so they also have to make some kind of uh, arrangement if they invest in different countries. And this is very interesting. The group follows a policy of hedging 50 to 80% of the net currency exposure 9 to 12 months forward. It means that their hedging is based on net exposure. So for example, if you find that you are going to pay to the US 6 million and you will get from US a revenue 4 million, then 6 minus 4, 2 million, then you will only hedge $2 million. And you are basically hedging 50 to 80%. So basically the company, if the net exposure is 2 million, the company is hedging anything between 1 million to 1.6 million, not the full amount. And most of their hedging is 9 to 12 months. Well, obviously you can criticize them that, okay, netting is possible, net hedging is okay, but why don't you cover full amount of money? And why your currency exposure you only maintain for 9 to 12 months? What if the period is before 9 months, or if it is beyond 12 months? And by the way, they also have a risk committee, a risk management committee. So you can also talk about it. The second risk which company admits is the fuel price risk. So if this Icelandic company is buying oil from Saudi Arabia and the real appreciates, that could be very dangerous. Okay. Similarly, the interest rate risk, if the rate of interest goes up, if this company is borrowing from UK, this Icelandic company, they are borrowing in pound. So imagine that they are borrowing from a British bank. There are two types of risk. The first risk is that the interest rate charged by this British bank from Air Iceland can go up. But the second risk is that when the Icelandic company borrow from the British bank and they transfer this money from Britain to Iceland, it could be possible that the pound become very cheap. It means the amount when you convert to Icelandic krona, it become very small. But when you make a payment back from Iceland to Britain, then the interest rate, then the exchange rate can be so that pound can appreciate. So the company may end up paying more. So point I'm trying to make here is that even though it's an interest rate risk, but there is still involvement of foreign exchange fluctuation. Because companies these days, they not only borrow from the domestic market, but they also borrow from different countries. So when an Icelandic company is borrowing from Britain, it faces the risk of interest rate fluctuation, but it still faces the forex fluctuation risk because you are borrowing in pounds. And when you borrow pound, the pound can be cheap, but when you return the loan, the pound can go up, and that can kill the cash flows of the company. So basically, every risk can be explained with the help of foreign exchange fluctuation. The risk of fuel price risk. You are buying oil from Saudi Arabia. The oil price, if it goes up, it's not just the price which goes up, but sometimes it happens that you are paying them in real, and the price doesn't go up, but the real become expensive in comparison to the Iceland's domestic currency. You still end up paying more. So basically, every risk which you can see from page 36 to 39, you can see with respect to the exchange rate fluctuation. And when you see the interest rate risk, they are using a lot of swap contracts. Unfortunately, we are not discussing, we're not studying them. but they use swap. Then they have the liquidity risk. Remember the liquidity risk we discussed in the first assignment. There was some liquidity ratio, which you discussed about the current ratio, then the acid test ratio, and likewise. So what type of liquidity risk they are facing? If this Iceland airline company, if they are flying the passengers of other countries who make payment revenue in the multiple currencies, it could be possible that if those currencies depreciates, then the company's revenue can go down. And same way, the Air Iceland also spend in different currencies, and if they appreciate, this can again make a dent in the financial position of Air Iceland. And then, of course, there are some industry-related risk factors. Like, for example, these days you can see that about the oil consumption of the airline companies in the world has reduced by around 80%. So that is also one risk, that the airline company are probably, and the oil companies are probably even more, are the worst affected companies these days because of this COVID-19. So there are some industry-specific risk which can also harm the company. So the point I'm trying to make here is that when you look at the risk management report, you can see that what type of risk the company is exposed to. All right. And then when I typed in these keywords, I also found on page 89 something very interesting, which I can share with you. So make sure that you are using the keywords quite often. I haven't done the full analysis of this company, but very kind of a quick so on page 89, this company has its financial risk management overview. And this now tells more in details that how they are managing those risks. So they are using forwards, they're using swaps, they're using options, and they're also using the financial futures to hedge this. So again, there are about 3-page long discussion that how they are managing those risks. And I think here they also talk about their exchange rate. Yeah, so here you can see that forward exchange contracts, the outflow. So when the money is going out, then they have managed 87,000 something contracts, which is about when they have to make payment. And when the money is coming to from the export income, then they have a contract something about 91712. So this type of information, I think this section is worth reading for you, which you should go through. And then they also talk about the market risk. They talk about the fuel risk, which we discussed before. How much, which instrument they use. Well, they're using forwards quite a lot. Like for example, here they say, the current group strategy as reflected in the policy is to hedge between 40 to 60% of the fuel consumption 12 months forward and up to 20% from 13 to 18 months forward. So basically, if they see that they have certain X amount which is exposed to exchange rate fluctuation, and that is for the 1 year, then they don't cover the full amount, but they only cover 40 to 60%. But when they know that there is a exposure for about 18 months, a year and a half, then in the beginning, they don't cover full amount, they only hedge 20% of the exposure. Okay, so this is their strategy, and you can have a criticism on it that maybe they're not covering a lot of ratio. So if there's a big change in the market like now, this can be very dangerous. Here, there's a more detailed discussion about the currency risk, the foreign exchange risk, and likewise. But basically, I'm trying to give you a message that even though it's an operational risk, interest rate risk, commodity price risk, the forex risk, the forex risk is definitely included in it, because if oil become expensive, then you have to pay more foreign exchange. And if the oil price goes up, you pay more money in Saudi Riyal, and even worse, Riyal become expensive against euro. Then not only you pay more Riyal, but you pay more Riyal because of the appreciation of Riyal, and likewise. So every risk is including inherently the forex risk. So these are some of the things which you should keep in mind. The company, look at the first contents page. There would be some discussion about, there'll be some section meant for the financial risk management or the risk factors. So first of all, identify the risk and then look at the company's risk management policy, and then you make some kind of critique. Okay, so please go through this video and make sure that you are following the points. I can quickly recall what I said. You first make a list of risk which you made at the end of the first assignment, and also which company admits. Then try to visualize, make an educated guess, try to make some kind of describe those risks with respect to the foreign exchange fluctuation. Okay, and then try see the company's existing risk management policy and the instruments that they use. When I say instrument, it means options, futures, forwards, and then you give your own suggestions and feedback and some kind of argumentation. You should consider yourself as a company's CFO who is giving a presentation to the board of directors about the risk management. So don't do too much of number crunching. It will not serve any purpose. Be more descriptive. Try to convince me and the others through your arguments and through your ideas, rather than those fancy numbers, which neither you understand nor you can justify. And the figures and the tables, when I say, they are not those existing in the annual report. Don't just copy and paste them. If you think that table and figure is important to strengthen, to back up your point, feel free to do it. If you can't do it, then don't do it for the sake of it, because then remember, anything you write in your PowerPoint, anything you say in your slides or in your Word file, you have to justify. So don't write anything which is indefensible. You can't defend the indefensible. Okay, so I hope this would be of any use, this short discussion, not discussion, rather my speech, monologue. So wish you all the best for your assignment and your presentation. See you soon.